Hey everyone, welcome to the Not a Lonely Coffee Break podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Meaghan. We're a podcast about coffee and work, but make it queer. Today we're talking about something that is especially relevant. Summer's here. Pride Month, hello, is in full swing. We're towards the end. And everywhere we look, there's always messages about how our bodies look, what should we wear, what are the fads of diets and whatnot. And somehow this idea of we're all supposed to become completely different people between Memorial Day and Labor Day, which yeah. So it's wild.
Right. It's like it's like summer body season and swimsuit season and crop top season. And of course, Pride Festival season. And so for a lot of people, I know that can bring up some complicated feelings about body image, confidence, identity, just self-acceptance.
Yeah. We spend so much time talking about loving ourselves, and showing up authentically. But, the reality is having a healthy relationship with your body is hard. It's not simple. There's so many things coming from all different angles. And for many LGBTQ folks, those conversations can come with additional layers, right? We have our identity, our gender expression, belonging, and community expectations.
That's why I'm really excited because we have a guest today joining us. We've been looking forward to having her on, Meaghan, for a while. Dr. Steffanie Grossman. She specializes in eating disorders, body image concerns, LGBTQ plus mental health, and really just helping people build healthier relationships with themselves. So she has spent many years supporting people as they navigate everything from self-esteem and body acceptance to disordered eating and gender-affirming care.
I'm so excited for this conversation. It's going to be so much fun because we deal with these things every single day, so throughout today's conversation, we're going to unpack the messages we've all absorbed into our bodies. So hopefully y'all can leave with a little bit more compassion for yourself and this body we're living in.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. We've been anticipating it all month long. So welcome.
Thank you.
Before we dive into everything, can you tell us a little bit about who you are for our listeners?
Absolutely. And first off, thank you for having me, y'all. I am so excited to be here bright and early. Coffee in hand. My name is Steffanie Grossman, pronoun she, her, hers. I am a licensed psychologist and certified eating disorder specialist consultant. I'm in private practice, so Dakota Therapy and Consulting. I specialize in working mainly with eating disorders as well as with our LGBTQ plus population, so navigating gender identity, sexual identity, mainly individual therapy, brain spotting sessions. And then I also do assessments for gender dysphoria for letters in support of folks who are seeking gender-affirming medical procedures, and do a lot of training, consultation, in those topics as well. So again, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you so much. We've been talking this month and really throughout this whole series of this season is, how we deal with certain things with media. And when people hear terms like body positivity, body acceptance, body neutrality, what do those things actually mean? Is one approach more helpful than another?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so for helpfulness, really depends on the person, and each person might be able to kind of use these different approaches or just different ideas for different parts of their body, different parts of their life. So when I think body positivity, what I'm thinking is that aspect of being able to really love your body, like your body, or when we think about not even your body as a whole, but if maybe there's a particular part of your body that you're struggling with, just being able to maybe focus on some other pieces of your body that you really do feel positive about, or working toward just really, again, feeling, whether it be love, just something positive toward that. And so I can think of that as both how you feel towards your body and also doing actions, right? That space of being kind to your body, treating your body well. Body acceptance, when I think about body acceptance, that's going to be more that part of just accepting your body as is in this moment. And so that space of acknowledging you might not love or like particular body parts or your body as a whole in that space, but more just that space of I'm accepting that this is where my body is right now. And a big part of when I think about body acceptance, almost in some ways is an action, that space of I'm able to accept my body in a way that I'm not going to harm it through an eating disorder symptom because I want to change it, that I'm not going to harm it through self-injury, whatever form, because I dislike it, but more just that space of we can accept and where we are. And then when it comes to body neutrality, That's going to be the part, and that can almost align really well with body acceptance. The goal might not be, I am never going to freaking embrace, I'm not going to like my body right now in this moment, but I can accept that and I can also feel neutral about it. So a goal might be just simply to not have it be where you dislike your body, but just feel neutral. My body is what it is in this moment. When I think about when those approaches, depending kind of on which one's most helpful, body acceptance and body neutrality, I use a lot or kind of focus on a lot with clients who come in, and noting this is not a one size fits all. So not all clients who come in holding a particular identity is going to necessarily be aligning in this way. But I have some clients who come in, say, who are navigating gender dysphoria. And so it might be that they are, right now, my chest size it does not fit who I am. It just creates so much dysphoria. I just am not connected with it. This is just not my gender. It's not me. And so one of the goals with that client in that moment might be we never really focus on feeling body positivity toward their chest size at this point. But the goal might be to figure out, how do we accept that this is where our chest size is right now and feel neutral about it, so that we can almost, whether it be using a binder or doing something to kind of be able to almost just again accept where we are, to even get to a spot that potentially down the road we can feel positive through maybe a surgery. Right. So that spot of just a goal being not harm yourself in that moment. So feeling neutral about it, to be able to accept it. Or flip side, that body positivity might be feeling a lot of love towards your body, because your body's always going to be the thing that you're walking with. Right. And so we really don't want you just
Right.
liking it or hating it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like a journey. You're just in different moments in time, you're going to be
Mhm.
feeling different ways, right? Like it's always changing.
I love that too. I think that the way you just described that kind of aligns with that of saying I can be proud of who I am while also maybe not fully ready to embrace every aspect of me just yet, but I want to put in the work to get to that place. So I really like that comparison and segue into our conversation today. But summer is here. And it's in full swing, right? We were just chatting offline about all the pride things happening this month in particular. There's just something going on all the time. But this is also a time where we see a lot of those seasonal messages
Mhm.
about, what the ideal body is, right? Why do these seasonal messages have such a powerful effect on how we see ourselves?
Yeah, well, it starts to create this idea that your body is better or more valuable or even more showable, or even allows
Mhm.
you to leave the house at particular
Mhm.
seasons, i.e., according to this message, when it looks or is a particular shape, a particular way. And so when you
Right.
think about that, it just sets you up so much to have almost this really unhealthy relationship with just your body as a whole, of winter or spring or
Mhm.
fall, or pick any season, I guess, other than summer, right?
Mhm.
So 3/4 of the year, my body, I get to be okay with it and it's fine. But then come summer, my body needs to be just like this quote unquote perfect thing. What you see is such a spike of, when it comes to eating disorder symptoms, there's different holidays and different seasons that we have
Right.
that spike. But in summer, especially, because it's all of a sudden this pressure that people put on themselves to feel like, well, if I want to go to the pool, I have to look XYZ. And with that in
Mhm.
mind, we end up having it be where all of a sudden this rigidity develops, or this feeling guilty for not working out, or feeling guilty for your body as is. And it just really almost takes something that ideally is fun and peaceful and makes it where I'm only worthy of that if I look a particular way. Excitement and just comparison, not even to other people, but literally to yourself. We have enough people
Right.
judging us, sadly. And so why do we need to be judging ourselves?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
It kind of just also reminds me, like, because I'm a really heavily like routined person.
Mhm.
I don't have do the same thing hour by hour, but in seasons, I have my routine. I do certain things. I wear certain
Mhm.
clothes, and like I eat certain foods. And then when like these shifts happen, these summer, especially in summer, when I was younger, teenage years, like yeah, I would do these long fasts of like salads and like all these like really
Mhm.
lean things, and then I would just end up binging, and like it would throw me off so badly. It was just, and it just, yeah,
Yeah.
that guilt that just comes along with it, because you're like, why am I even doing this? Because it
Yeah.
drives you nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I could imagine like just, the effect it has on, anyone who's just
Mhm.
struggling deeply with, the body positivity and the acceptance we
Mhm.
have with our bodies. And it just makes it that much harder,
Yeah.
because you're like, well, everybody else is doing this. And, we came from a time in, for the millennials that were coming out of the 90s into the early
Mhm.
2000s, like those magazines, like we relied on magazines for information,
Mhm.
and all they had were those crash diets. Everyone
Mhm.
was in a strap bikini, and it was just a lot.
Yeah.
So, trying to break free of that is probably super challenging. And social media seems to have to change the way we think about our bodies, so all the things that we see, and there's just so much. But what are you seeing in your work, especially among young adults, when it comes to like comparing self image?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think social media, I think people try to kind of find community in that space or that part
Yeah.
of that's where you compare yourself to friends and compare yourself to others. So there's been studies that they've done with, or that they, whoever they are, there's been studies that have shown that when it comes to social media usage, that it actually is heightened depression, decreased happiness, and just a whole handful of different kind of negative impacts. And one of the pieces when I think about that is how if people try to put their best foot forward, but even like how many times do you see someone take literally 25 pictures to find the perfect angle? And then when we think about you see, I totally I see that we all do, right? That part because that's what you're taught now to compare yourself, right? Not even just to
Yeah.
others, to yourself. And so that part of when we think about hyper focusing on your body, right? Literally, we do that now with pictures. Ooh, that right there. See a tiny difference that is just yeah. So I think social media and just even like the idea of kind of like honestly like iPhones and things in general, where there's now this way of just like hyper focusing and hyper analyzing self and others has really created almost this just again nitpicking ourselves.
I know, Stephanie, you and I kind of emailed back and forth about this, but I am seeing a lot. It's always been there, but there's always a new thing going on, a new trend, current event, whatever, where the conversations that we're having online about our suspicions about things, I guess, is there perhaps a tip or strategy that you would recommend if someone is concerned about someone in the online space, whether it's a celebrity they look up to or a loved one that they're seeing photos online of and they're concerned about their appearance? There's a lot of just stuff in the comments about, I don't know, it's just real shameful. And it's like, if this person is dealing with perhaps an eating disorder, do you really think that this comment is going to be what it takes for them to seek help?
Yeah. As well, first off, like so social media wise, like if you can like and love and do all the things if you're on social media that are actually more focused on body positivity, loving yourself, things of that sort. I mean, that's when we think about the algorithm, right? Like as in you're gonna get more things. So like that part being
Right.
intentional about it. And I think you brought up a good point. That part of it, like realistically, like if there's a celebrity or someone that you don't know, and chances are you have no power to influence in that space, rather than like you're saying, like making a shaming comment or judging, or just if you really want to write something to them, like on social media, like making it just very something like loving. Like, one of the parts that I think it's almost, especially when it comes to social media and just like that separation of like that person's not in front of us, whether it be like actually someone like we care about, love, know, dislike, whoever, right? Know them or don't know them. That part there, but almost is like that screen sometimes can make it feel so okay to say things that aren't. And that part there of just really figuring out like if there's something that you are like wanting to, if you have a celebrity that you're like, well, I'm worried about them. If you want to put something, still say like, care a lot about you, or like, you look like you're radiant, something that's not about body. If it's someone that you care about and you're worried about them, honestly, the best thing you might be able to do, and again, depending on the relationship, is if you have, like, if you're worried about someone, you have a therapist, talk with them about how do you like talk with them or like kind of process this with them is helpful. But that part of you can also just voice in a way that's not about body that you're concerned about them. Or like you can say, like, hey, like, I've noticed that you've been seeming to really like maybe struggling with like food around, like when I've been around you, like you haven't really been eating, or I've noticed that maybe you've been going to the bathroom a lot after, or just that there's been just some shifts of you seem really preoccupied with this. And I just want to let you know I'm kind of worried about you. I might be wrong. I really just want you to know I'm worried about you. And if you want some resources, I can definitely find you some. Because like really even that part there, just one sometimes having someone say like, I care about you. I'm worried about you, not calling you out for your body or for like your eating patterns or anything of that sort. And like a negative, more just a like, I care about you and I'm noticing this, but not having it be where it's shaming and more just, I'm worried about you. And then again, if you don't know the person, just don't talk about their bodies. We normalize talking about bodies way too much. Like just when it
Yeah.
comes to the space there of there's no reason to make judgments or to be focusing or hyper focusing on someone's body when like that person has so much else to them. It's even compliment wise.
Right.
Like, compliment a
Yeah.
body, compliment like you have the like most radiant energy rather than like, wow, looks so great today. Like just
Yeah.
Yeah.
about
Yeah. I think that, yeah, because I mean, even as growing up, I grew up in a house full of women. So it was always that, that constant, like, are you gaining weight? Are you not gaining weight? Are you gaining weight? Are you not, are you losing weight? And it's
You're
just
gaining
like,
too much
that's
weight.
you're gaining too much weight, or are you getting too skinny? Is my butt too big? Is it getting too small? Like, it's just, but like, so growing up in that atmosphere, you think that a compliment is saying, oh, you look skinny, like you're looking skinny, like that. But really, that is so triggering. Like, what if they're not trying to be skinny? What if they're trying to like put on muscle or gain a little pounds, or maybe like they're dealing with something, so they haven't been eating? Like, that could be extremely triggering. So like, yeah, definitely switching that verbiage and just like practicing different compliments.
And then even just with that, like when we use or keep using those like different types of comments and kind of voicing concern about like body itself, things of that sort, it keeps just normalizing it. Like, and so that space there, like I'm a huge believer in like anyone that stops like or tries to stop kind of a pattern, like it's still like it's a pop in the pattern in that piece. And so by like not perpetuating or kind of playing into that part of like focusing on body, it does have the power to make a difference.
For
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. So we know that Pride Month, we are here to celebrate authenticity, self-expression. We love Pride Month. But we also know it, just like we've been talking about, it can highlight certain pressures on appearance. So are there perhaps unique body image challenges that LGBTQ plus individuals experience that people may not always recognize?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So, a lot of folks, like, if you just kind of, my bet would be, and could be wrong, but my bet would be if we took a poll, like, a lot of people think that women have the highest rates of eating disorders. And actually, so when we look at all folks with regards to genders, the highest rates of eating disorders among all genders actually are among non binary folks and trans men. And so, when we think about that space there, just like both the body image concerns, the eating disorder part, like, really kind of like noting that realm. We also see disproportionately really high rates of eating disorders among gay men, among bisexual and pansexual folks of all genders. And so just really noting like there's different subsections of the population, the adult population just have very high rates of eating disorders. We know so often that like with regards to body image, like body image is never just about body, right? It's about that part of like my body lets me feel accepted, it lets me feel worthy, it lets me feel seen, it lets me feel in control, it lets me feel whatever it is, right? And so if someone's coming in and they're like, for example, as a pan person, I've experienced this, right? I kind of just like looking, my own history, what got me interested in this field was having an eating disorder myself when I was a kiddo. And it's just fun to help people find their own versions of freedom. And so noticing it, so in my own world, that part of like, if there is that kind of that pressure of like, I don't feel like I fit anywhere, like not gay enough for the gays, not straight enough for the straights, right? That part there,
Right.
sometimes like that body part can be a way of feeling like in control and feeling like, okay, well, as long as I look good, that I'm liked, then I'm, and so like, within the community where so often we see that like body image can be a way of almost trying to like manage like when there's internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia, internalized biphobia, all of the different things. And so just really kind of noting like there is a very high rate of body image and eating disorder symptoms among our community, a lot based on some of these pieces of oppression.
Yeah. When you hear about eating disorders or like, the body dysmorphia, you're like, oh, it just has to do with food and stress and depression or anxiety. Like, there's so much more like that comes to like how we view ourselves, how we look at ourselves. We have mirrors everywhere. We have cameras everywhere, and we're constantly just, that nitpicking that you had said. And for someone like me, I'm like a nitpicking champion. So it's just, I can't, like, it's so consuming. And so, when you were talking about the body dysmorphia and the gender dysmorphia, like, can you expand a little, like, the difference between those two experiences and why it's important not to treat it as the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So when we think about body dysmorphia, so what we're going to be looking at is really just that mental health disorder where you have a hyper focus on a particular body part of yourself. And oftentimes with body dysmorphia, you're actually seeing yourself not as you are. And so they've actually done studies with body dysmorphia. So that's where, so if you were talking with someone with like someone who's really struggling with body image or struggling maybe with an eating disorder, and if you ever be like, well, wait, no, but you're so pretty, like, or like, you're not as small or as big or as this or as that as you think you are. And they're like, no, 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 that's not true. Or like this body part is like, it is just wonky. And you're like, that's not about what I'm, no. So what actually is happening with body dysmorphia is basically your brain is actually working incorrectly. Like it's not firing the way it should. And so someone is actually not seeing themselves in the way that they actually look. And so the studies that they've done that highlight that have been with eating disorders, but really the body dysmorphia part of it that is kind of like highlighted in that space. But so with body dysmorphia, it's almost like there's goggles on. And so if someone has body dysmorphia about like a particular body part, like let's just use a nose, for example. Like if someone has like body dysmorphia about their nose is so huge and you're like, your nose isn't that huge. Like I'm concerned. Like I don't get it why you want like 5 surgeries. And they're like, no, seriously, it's so huge. They're actually seeing it in that way. And so that part of if you ever like get in that spot of like, we're basically in a back and forth about this isn't true. Well, it's because they're literally seeing it differently than you are. And so one of the parts of body dysmorphia is like noticing how powerful it is and how stuck people can feel in it. But so really it's like that pre-hyper, just a hyper focus on a particular body part. Gender dysphoria, flip side, is going to be just really just like this distress, the psychological distress from having it be where your gender isn't matching what society assigned you at birth. And so when we think about like folks getting misgendered, just how it like just creates that gender dysphoria, just that feeling of just really not connecting. Or like when we think about so gender dysphoria in particular spots, like I have a lot of clients that come in where they might have like I mentioned like chest dysphoria, where like their chest just really if it has more of like the like say if they come in if they're a trans male, we're talking about eating disorder symptoms, if their chest tends to be what folks end up potentially misgendering them on, as well as if it's just say like if it's larger than what they're really feeling like fits, it can really create just this like sense of just distress of I don't fit with my body. Like this is not me. And so with that space, the difference is they might be seeing themselves exactly as they are, as opposed to with body dysmorphia, this person is not seeing themselves how they are. And so there's almost those two pieces. So one's more about like gender and your body really aligning with who you are. Body dysmorphia is just the hyper focus on particular body parts. And oftentimes that you actually aren't seeing it as you are.
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And I do think it's important that we do understand that they are kind of separate things and that anyone can experience any of those things. But do you ever see overlap in some of your clients between the body dysmorphia and the gender dysphoria? And how can they perhaps influence one another?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so when we think about so everyone lives in this bubble right now where say if someone like so let's say someone's a cis woman, someone's a trans woman, regardless like of that identity with regards to cis or trans aspect, you are still getting hit as a woman in this society with the sexism, with the pressures, with all of this part. And so like a lot of times, like when we think about or connect how I can see those two things like building off one another is say, let's say someone comes in and they experience gender dysphoria about like their about their chest size, right? And so they end up like they're experiencing chest dysphoria and they have surgery and then they end up still though being like, well, you know what, like I am just like I'm not pretty enough without like I need to have like kind of a bigger chest in the space again. Like I really want to be viewed as attractive. Like this just doesn't like and so almost like potentially at one point what was gender dysphoria like with regards to like that my chest is really like connected to more of that masculinity space. Potentially I got surgery to really be able to fit my body. But now what's happening is that I have a lot of pressures from society about that a woman should have like larger breasts and like this piece, that piece. So it can almost like morph into potentially some body dysmorphia where there's like this or just this really hyper focus on this would make me like look more like attractive. And so it almost like in that space morphs a little bit just by the nature of you're still a woman getting pressure about what should look like.
I mean, because like as you say that, I was thinking about how, a lot of that comes from like our own self-perception of what attractiveness looks like. I know it has to do with the way you were brought up and your culture and the things that you internalize as quote unquote attractive. For me as a woman, I just growing up, you're like changing in relationships and things like that. And it's like sometimes the first thing you think about when a relationship is failing is I'm not attractive enough.
Yeah.
Or they're no longer attracted to me because X, Y, and Z. What did I do wrong to change that attractiveness? So I'm curious, how can, someone start taking the steps to like start changing that narrative? Because it is so like ingrained in like how we view maybe other people as how we think they're attractive. And so kind of rewiring what does attractiveness even mean? I mean, it's so subjective from person to person.
Yeah, totally. So with even just kind of going off what you're saying with like that example about like kind of like the breakup. And so like when I think about that, like the idea of like attractiveness almost becomes a sense of like, well, if I'm like, if it's that they broke up with me because I'm not attractive or because I did something wrong. Really, what we're talking about is I want a sense of control. I want to be able to prevent this next time. I want to feel safe. I want to not be alone. I want to be whatever it is, right? And so when I think about like what you said, like that space there, I'd be curious, like, so what happens if you're attractive? Does that mean like that again, like you don't get broken up with? So I'm not alone. I'm not hurt. I'm not. So what is attractiveness actually like? We almost view it as like kind of like a red herring, like what's below it? Can we help develop some strategies to gently challenge that idea, to like have it be where, say, if all of a sudden we start noticing that we maybe have body image concerns spike and we're able to identify, well, it's because potentially this breakup made me feel like I'm not as attractive. And that's why whoever broke up with me. And so therefore, like if we dive down below that, if I'm feeling alone, what can I do to challenge it? Let's reach out to a friend. Let's be intentional about building friendships. Let's do a thought record, like where it's like that part of like what evidence says that I'm actually alone. Because it's kind of like, again, with that body spot, it's not really about your body. Your body is just like your home, right? It's just the thing that you walk around in and waddle and hang out in. And like, it's just a thing with you. It's more what is body taken on, like that false sense of control. And so figuring out what's below that.
Right. You know, as we're talking, it's just like it's so wild because I mean, we have to engage with food every day, right? Like we have to, we don't have like,
and we have to
we don't
engage
have
with
a
our
choice
bodies every day.
every single day. And it's so easy for us to manipulate food to address what we're feeling inside or the way we're, you know, maybe our stressors or how we may feel inadequate. You know, for someone who may be listening and realizing that they may be struggling, what are the first steps that someone can take to get support? Yeah.
I mean, I think the fact that if they're listening to this, unless they just listen to all y'all's episodes because y'all are amazing and awesome and all the things, like that's actually a really good first step. Like, congratulations, you're taking a first step by listening to something that's focused on body image. Like, right, like that is like even acknowledging that your distress is real, that this is real, that this concern is real, and that there's hope maybe that like you're not alone, that you can find some support. Like that is a first step. So like, I'm so glad you're here, right? We're all so glad you're here. And so yay. And then after that, like there are free support groups that are just literally like, even if it's just going and just reading like just about like body image concerns some or about eating disorder symptoms and just hope and recovery, that can be powerful. Reach out to me and like by all means, like I'm happy to again give you resources if it's not a good fit for therapy. Like it's like a lot of folks like they come in like, I don't really want therapy. Like I just like want to kind of like figure out is this even something? But honestly, like the first step is literally just acknowledging that like hopefully there's hope or that I don't feel like there's hope. And like that makes me still want to see if I can find some.
No, I love that. I love that. So you've spent a lot of time helping people sort of heal their relationships with themselves. But what does healing actually look like? Is it just loving your body every day or is it something different?
Yeah, great question. So this really varies. Like, and I think sometimes that can be really helpful for our clients or just anyone to hear, just especially too, if someone's been really stuck for a very long time in disliking themselves or disliking their body, stuck in an eating disorder, the idea of even like knowing what it's like to not be like caged in some of those thoughts or to even consider that you might be able to actually really whether it be love yourself or feel like you can eat whatever it is without being like, oh my gosh, I just did this. And that can feel almost overwhelming in itself. And so there are different versions of freedom that you can find. And so some people's versions of freedom, like when I think kind of like that freedom is like the term I like to use, might be actually figuring out how do we really develop body positivity? How do we learn to appreciate our body, right? So even something small, like I like to give clients an activity of doing so each day. What are 3 things that you appreciate about your body? Because like that can be really hard in itself, right? But I don't care if it's that, like for me, I appreciate that my hand lets me pick up my owl cup to drink my like very heavenly like caffeine. Like, appreciate your body, right? Cool. I appreciate that my eyes let me like see y'all's fabulous selves. I appreciate that my butt lets me sit in this very comfortable chair, right? So 3 things you appreciate about your body. 3 things you accomplished that day. And so that can be, again, congratulations for listening to this podcast. That is awesome. You just accomplished something, right? So things that are just like small, I woke up in the morning, whatever. And so in those pieces, like those small things can be really helpful. So even just learning how to like start to like appreciate your body and hopefully like what we do is kind of help morph that a little bit into like peeling apart what we talked about earlier. If the idea of attractiveness holds such this tight realm, but really it's more about, well, I'm afraid of being lonely or alone. I'm afraid I'm not going to be worthy. I'm afraid I'm not safe, right? Because like even that, when we think about the overlap oftentimes is like sexual assault or just assault in general with regards to body image concerns and eating disorder symptoms, and how sometimes that body can become a way of like, whether it be like almost like trying to like protect yourself in some ways from anything happening again. And so like whatever it is your traumas right in that space, like figuring out what is it that lets us almost navigate that like underlying piece, whatever it is below appearance, in a way that actually isn't like hurting your body or like making you hate your body, making you hate your home, i.e., right? Because your body's your home, like along the process. And so really kind of like navigating those pieces. So for some, it might be freedom. And is that down the road, you end up having it be where we develop intuitive eating. You're able to listen to your body to notice like hunger cues, know what you're hungry for, know what you're not hungry for. And just every now and then you might have some disordered eating episodes. Cause even like, if you ever seen some people like at a holiday, like you eat past the point of full, technically that's disordered eating, but it's not distressing. And so you can have maybe a disordered eating episode where it's not distressing. So that's kind of a goal, right? For some, like down the road is just like peacefulness with food.
Yeah.
And so a big part is like really talking with the person and figuring out like, what is it for you that even like lets you hold enough hope that this is even possible? We want folks with all eating disorders across the board to be able to just find peace and freedom from food. How do we deal with emotions, that sense of control, whatever's going on, in a way that's not harming our body, whether it be through like lack of nutrients or having it be where we're pushing our body past this point of full, just like not being in control in that space.
Yeah. Woo. I mean, I am loving this conversation because it's just
Love
such
it. I
an
love it. Yeah.
interesting topic. Because I mean, like I said, it's just such an everyday part of our lives. Like we literally can't disconnect from it, you know? And so I think it might be a shared experience among like various, I mean, no matter who you are, like it's affecting everybody of all cultures, of all backgrounds, of all ages. And so I really have loved this, and I love that you're so passionate. So like, what is one piece of body image advice?
Yeah. I think kind of almost going off what you're saying there, where even that space of how you're like, you have to make peace with that. Like, I love the idea of kind of like embracing that part of like, technically, you don't have to, but how shitty is that if you're like always hating, like, again, your home, right? Like that part of like, if we can almost, I'm a huge believer in like language is power. And so if even taking that phrase of like, kind of thinking that like with regards to your body, like I can love myself regardless of my body. No. Honestly, I can love myself and my body. I can love myself with my body. I can love myself not regardless of my body. My body is like me as well in this space. And so whether it be kind of even if we're still navigating that part of like accepting or finding neutrality within our body, like that space of just like figuring out how to not almost have it be where your body has to feel like so like almost again that regardless piece. So that's one thing I think that like when I think about kind of like a takeaway from this, if we could, like one, shift some of this language. It's the only thing that you will wake up next to every single day for the rest of your life. Because even let's say you have a partner that you're with, at some point the partner is going to have to go to the bathroom. You're going to wake up and they're not going to be there. And so like your body will be the one thing you wake up next to every single day.
Right.
Let's figure out how to, like at least accept it in that space. And then the other part, just to kind of like thinking about language is, it's funny when I do a lot of supervision, and this can be so powerful because both in the eating disorder world, but also just like in like more body image and just self-esteem world and everything, like where sometimes in notes, like I would have like my supervisees, right, that like client came in presenting concern was being queer or being trans or being whatever, fill in the blank. And really like, again, language is power. Like even that part of when we talk to ourselves, the part of like, I'm not experiencing. So what I would talk with them about is that part of like that really the language we want to use is like clients coming in with concerns related to oppression of being queer or being trans and being, and so when we're talking to ourselves, that part of like, we're like, oh, like, I like my body, I'm so fill in the blank today. I don't really like it. It'll be okay. No. We can start gently like reframing our wording to be like, I'm experiencing a lot of sexism today to where like my body is feeling crappy based on that, or I'm experiencing a lot of oppression today based on who I should be. And my body is so almost just like starting to kind of call out where some of these messagings come from. Or even like if it is like when we're relating to family, that part of like, can we call it like, I'm experiencing maybe a lot of like internalized messaging from like whatever parent, guardian, sibling, friend, bullied, this, that today. And so my body's feeling hard. But like that space of like stopping demonizing your body, like that's kind of my piece of advice. If we could stop demonizing the body, I think that would be probably a very peaceful thing.
Love it. Good to know. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll start today.
This was it was a great conversation. And I think it really is that great reminder for us as we continue to explore how we can be proud of who we are during Pride Month and ongoing. So Thank you so much for joining us and diving into this with us. I'm sure we're going to want to have you on again so we can nerd out even more. Eating disorders and the queer community, but we are really grateful that you joined us today for a little coffee chat.
Thank you. I'm grateful for y'all for having me. Again, I
Yeah.
validate these topics are important as they impact so many people. And so thank you for making it a priority.
Yes. Thank you so much. Maddie, I have really struggled. Like, I'm pretty open about this, but I've struggled with like body image, like for most of my life, and I think it's a common theme, like for everybody. We're always comparing, looking, like exchanging what looks good, what doesn't look good. And so, like today's conversation, like honestly, I was like trying to keep it together because it's so like it speaks to I think a lot of us. It spoke to me, and what she had to say. And we definitely just don't talk about these things enough. So I hope, listeners, that for those of you that aren't on our Patreon, go listen to the extended version. There's so many things that Steffanie had to say that ring true that, sometimes I feel like when we're dealing with this body image issues and things like that, you just feel like you're going crazy. Like, this is me and my body just doesn't do the things that I want it to do. And it can be so frustrating. So, for y'all that like some of this was really interesting, I really, really would love y'all to go check out the extended version.
No, I thought it was a great chat. I'm really grateful that she came on and helped us talk about something that's really hard to talk about, even in like the mental health profession space. I know that it's really hard sometimes for people to talk about eating disordered and disordered eating because it's so complex and so unique to everyone. So I'm really grateful that she came and helped us unpack some of that and really acknowledge that like it's something that everybody can deal with, and sometimes just acknowledging a small little thing can make all the difference in your own relationship with your identity. So thank you again, Dr. Steffanie, for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
It was fun.
It was fun, but unfortunately I am all out of coffee for
Same.
today.
Same
So
thing.
that is our cue to wrap up. But thank you all for joining us, and be sure to subscribe if you have not already.
Yeah. Be sure you stay connected with us on our socials and continue the conversation. We'd love to hear your questions about what you have and your experience navigating the workplace.
Absolutely. We love social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Patreon. And of course, be sure to check out the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple so that you can continue listening to us. Of course, we hope that you will continue to join us for Not a Lonely Coffee Break. Again, we are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Meaghan. See you next time.
Cheers, queer.
Queers.